Hey everyone, welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, an audio podcast. We've got a really awesome guest today. He explores new ways to interact with information and one another. He's based in Vancouver and is the CEO and co-founder of Museum of Other Realities. Please join me in welcoming Robin Wood Stethem. Welcome, Robin.
Hey, how's it going, Thomas? Thanks for having me on today.
Thank you. You ready for 20 questions?
I am, and let the record show in advance, I haven't received these questions, so they're totally new. I'm very excited.
Okay, here we go. Number one, tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do?
What do I do? I would say that primarily my interests revolve around the tools that we use to interact with the physical and digital world, and the way that cultural production sort of steers and is steered by those tools.
Great. Just a note for our audience, Robin and I know each other through a TEDx event where we were both speakers a few years ago. Number two, what's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
Oh, I feel like this question whenever you ask someone what makes them different and what key knowledge they have that no one else has, you really run the risk of the classic smart guy mistake of thinking you're the smartest guy in the room. So I don't know if there is any one piece of knowledge that makes me different, but I would
Mm.
say uh, I am looking at a lot of different elements of the pieces that make up the rules that dictate our daily lives. And by kind of looking at those things holistically, rather than going deep into any one thing, I'm able to find and maybe connect seemingly separate elements that other people might miss. And usually you end up creating a business around those little things, whatever they may be.
Well, you are one of the kind of early people with VR in Vancouver, I feel like, at least on my radar. Is that true?
I don't know about that. I mean, there was a whole wave of people before me,
Right.
and I was very fortunate to be exposed to it in my schooling at Emily Carr. But I was lucky to get into it pretty early and meet some really interesting people who were doing great stuff in the medium, get the chance to work with them.
Great. Okay. Number three, why this of all things? Why do you do what you do?
I feel like when I was thinking about getting into virtual reality, it seemed to me that there was a bit of a disconnect between digital interfaces and physical interfaces. A lot of things were being pulled over from nearly directly from interaction design, and we weren't thinking a lot about how we interact with the physical world. So I just thought there was an opportunity to apply a little bit more of the sort of language of the human body to the way that we work and recreate and entertain ourselves in VR. And I would say that was my in. And since then, I just continue to find it pretty interesting, how we interact with new media, basically coming up with ways to do that and ways to share it, and working with artists to put their best foot forward and create mechanisms through which they can reach their audience. I just find it quite interesting.
It's been a while since that TEDx talk where you presented around VR. And now we have platforms like Horizons and VR Chat and AltSpace, but you work outside of those kind of mainstream platforms, right?
Yeah, what we do tends to be higher touch. We work more closely with artists to produce pieces that are extremely customized in terms of both their input capabilities and their output capabilities. Typically, uh, a little bit outside of the capabilities of a network like, say, Horizon or VRChat. Which is not to say that those platforms aren't amazing. There's a lot of incredible work being done there, and a lot of my colleagues are actually doing incredible stuff in VR chat.
Mhm.
Um, it just tends to be that our approach is, I would say, more like uh, rather than mowing a lawn, we're trimming a plant. And if you were to take those same clippers that we're using to trim the plant and mow the lawn, it would take a long time and not be very effective.
I like that. Okay, number 4, what does your future look like?
What does my future look like? Man, it's hard to say. I've been very fortunate over the last couple of years to get to work with a lot of incredible people and organizations. And at the moment, we're kind of reflecting on all of that and thinking about where it's going. And I don't know when you're airing this episode, but everybody's probably aware of a lot of the turmoil that's happening in the world, and a lot of big pieces are shifting. I have no idea what the future holds, to be honest. I think it will continue to involve this skill set that I've built and these people that I love working with, but I don't know exactly which direction it will take, which honestly, I find that quite exciting. I like the idea of kind of discovering the path as you walk it.
Well, you have experience with a kind of radically shifting future, right? Because at the beginning you were, if I remember correctly, doing industrial design with footwear or something like that.
Well, one of the things we did was flip-flops. So I drew some flip-flops for a couple of days, which was interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's come a long way from where it started. I would say throughout my life, every time I came near a computer, opportunity just seemed to explode out of it like a fountain. And while working as an industrial designer, I kind of got near computers again, and it was just this torrent of possibility that drew me in. And I think it never quite goes the way that you think it will, but to me at least, it seems it's always gone in a very interesting direction. So I don't know, I continue to be fascinated by the way that these machines and the machines that we create on these machines, like metaphorical, machine software, the way that that software shapes our lives and is shaped by our lives.
Nice. So this next question is unique to this podcast. It is, let's talk about location. How does the notion of place play into what you do?
Well, I think there's a pretty awesome opportunity in VR to introduce a lot of what's missing in the idea of place into digital interactions. As we all know, even just being in the same place, I guess ironically, or maybe not ironically, on this podcast, we're actually in different places, and I'm just speaking to you through a computer. But I mean, the potential for bringing some of those elements of place into digital interactions, I think, is extremely powerful. And we're still just scratching the surface of the possibilities that will introduce to the way that we work and live and communicate with one another.
Nice. Number 6 is, if you had to start from the beginning, what advice would you give your former younger self?
I would say learn how to code, not so that you can code, but so that you can work with coders, because there's going to be developers who are, there's a lot more to writing code than just writing it. It turns out, working with a team to create something that can grow and be easily maintained by many people over time, it's very complicated, and it's not something you can just pick up overnight. But being able to understand code and speak to people who are professionals in that arena is extremely valuable. So I'd say, yeah, learn how to code, learn how to draw, learn how to write, because it's nice to be able to tie an idea in a knot and leave it somewhere and come back to it, or have other people be able to refer to it.
Great.
And then I think,
oh, sorry,
go ahead.
No, please.
I was just, once you have those hard skills, I think there's all the soft skills. I think when I started my career, I was quite arrogant, and looking back on it, it makes me cringe, because I realized, maybe only in hindsight some of the time, how much I had to learn from those people I had the good fortune of working with early in my career. And I think that that's something that, I don't know, maybe I was arrogant when I was young because I was insecure. And I don't know how exactly you fix that, but I think I could have been a lot more, maybe patient with myself and patient with others and respectful of others and their knowledge, because I was, yeah, as I said, I was very lucky to learn a lot. And that's that's one of those soft skills. Nobody likes it when you come in somewhere and you just assume that you know the right way to do something when this person's been doing that for years. You best just sit, kind of learn from them, and pick up what you can.
I love it. Number 7, what's your day in the life like?
Well, so I guess towards the start of my time with this company, there was a lot of hands-on design and creation. And then as time went on, it increasingly became, I think I spend more time in Gmail these days than anything else. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but more and more time just in communication with others, connecting things, people, ideas. So yeah, my day in the life these days is usually a series of meetings and emails and what you might call paper shuffling, I suppose.
8, lifelong learning is a popular topic. How do you stay up to date?
I like seeing what's happening in the world and pulling on the threads of those events to kind of look at their precedents, poking into the tangents that, as I said earlier, kind of like you can go deep here and there to look at a broader picture. I mean, recently I've been getting into reading books about the economy and stuff like that, just because of everything that's been happening. And I don't know, you kind of follow those interests wherever they might go. And oftentimes they lead to kind of profound insights, if you follow the thread long enough.
9, what tools do you use? Are you both digital and analog?
Yeah, I mean, I think being able to sketch physically is a good skill to have, because then all you need is a pen and a piece of paper. That being said, I think you could get along these days entirely digitally, and to say that, oh, you have to put pen to paper is, I think, maybe a little bit of an outdated idea. I'm sure that some people would disagree with that, but there's value in sitting across a table from someone with a big sheet of paper in between you and just kind of sketching out ideas. That being said, we're getting better at doing that entirely virtually. So I don't know, it might be that we're slowly replacing that, coming back to that idea of place. I don't know how much that plays into that, but I would say mostly digitally, and then sketching outside of that.
Great. Halfway, number 10, how do you deal with work-life balance?
It was a little bit harder earlier in my career, but I think later it becomes a little bit easier to create boundaries and set expectations about what's reasonable and what's not. And I've been fortunate enough to have the chance to, I guess, make every mistake in the book, or not every mistake, but lots of different types of mistakes, and figure out how best to create that space for your personal life. And I think more than anything, if you're working on a project and your counterparties are unsure of what's happening, or there's issues, then that might pull you out of a period that you want to be using for your personal life. So the better you're able to communicate what's happening, what's going to happen, and why something's working or not working, the more time you'll have for yourself. And so I think it all comes back to, if you're working with a team and you want to have work-life balance, I think the better you can communicate with that team and all the stakeholders surrounding what you're doing, the more time you will have for yourself.
Great. 11 is, if you weren't doing what you do now, what would you be doing?
Oh man, I mean, I worked on a golf course once as a groundskeeper. I loved that job, honestly. I found it quite peaceful. Maybe something like that, or I mean, coming back to the whole computers thing, it's just so maybe I'd be a developer. It's hard once you like I had different jobs over the years many times, but I kept getting pulled back into some version of, IT or whatever because of the economic benefit. So I guess when it comes to the question of what would you do if you weren't doing what you were doing, you have to consider the environmental forces surrounding the course that you've taken and how much we're going to divorce that question from those. Like I would probably have had to have grown up in a different place or a different time. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tricky question.
It's interesting.
Computers would probably be involved in some way.
Number 12, what would you not like to do in terms of career?
What would I not like to do? I don't. When I started doing this, I thought that when I got to a certain point, what I was doing as a job would provide me fulfillment in and of itself, like having a certain title or working on a certain project. And I realized over time that wasn't really what did it for me in the way that I thought it would. And maybe that's something that everyone kind of needs to discover for themselves. But I think one thing I wouldn't like to be doing is stuck pursuing a path for its own sake or because the title sounded good. And then one day waking up and realizing that really only mattered to me and it actually didn't matter to me as much as I thought it did. So I want to make sure that I'm making time to look at the whole picture and spend time with my family and my friends and doing the things that I love. Yeah, don't want to lose sight of the bigger picture, I guess.
Great. 13 is, what's your favorite word, quote, or sentence?
Oh man, there's so many. My favorite word, quote, or sentence. Well, so if there's this one quote from Plato about writing, and let me just see if I can pull it up quick. I love it because it speaks to the way that we address new technologies. So initially, he's concerned, Plato, that, yeah, here we go. Let's see. Plato say about writing. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so here's his quote, and of course it was way back when we're just getting out of oral histories. But he says, it will implant forgetfulness in their souls. They will cease to exercise memory because they rely on that which is written, calling things to remembrance no longer from within themselves, but by means of external marks. And I think what that quote really gets at is that more and more the tools we surround ourselves with are pieces of who we are and integral to how we are, how we work and interact and live. And it started with things like writing, but now a lot of the devices and objects we use every day are integral parts of who we are and indivisible from who we are. And one thing you'll notice every time a new technology comes along is that people often bemoan its effect on the youth or its effect on our lives. But I think more than anything, new technology, it's this inertia. It just happens. And we have a bit of an opportunity to try and create a dialogue around how it's shaping us, but it's going to change who we are and how we are. And I think that maybe if we're mindful of that, we can steer for the best possible outcome. But yeah, I think this idea of the division of the individual and their environment is there's less and less of a division as time goes on, and as the tools that we use are more and more an extension of our minds and our actions and our feelings, our ways of expressing ourselves.
Nice. How about a least favorite word, quote, or sentence?
Oh man, least favorite. I don't really have least favorites. I can't. Nothing really comes to mind.
Great.
I guess maybe the quote, "It's different this time," because it's always different this time, and I think is pessimistic to. It is something people say in financial markets a lot. You know, talking about bubbles or whatever. But I think that if we don't consider that it might be different this time, or that it's always slightly different this time, we're blind to the sort of subtle and unexpected outcomes of we're not looking at where we're going, I guess.
Perfect. 15, if you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what word would that be?
Curious, I guess, maybe. Yeah, that seems like a good one.
It's the most common one.
Yeah.
16, what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? These days, I actually sleep really well. I've gotten better at embracing the ambiguity of our lives, I think.
Great. Final stretch, number 17. What's a dream you're chasing?
A dream that I'm chasing. I feel like I've caught all my dreams recently, to be honest. I need new dreams, but I've just been kind of enjoying everyday life and opening myself to whatever comes next. I don't exactly know, to be honest. Yeah, that may sound weird. I guess my dream is to have the time to spend with the people that I love, and that's sort of a perpetual dream, just to be able to take the time to appreciate those relationships.
What inspires you?
What inspires me? So many things. The world. I think a lot of the time I find inspiration in seemingly mundane elements of everyday life, and I'm inspired by trying to unravel how they got to be in the shape that they are. I guess system design, maybe that's a cliched answer, but I find systems fascinating and emergent behavior fascinating. And I think that sort of thinking holds the key to a lot of, there's a lot of power in unlocking the hidden complexity in our lives.
Awesome. And any advice you'd like to share?
I think if you're really good at what you do, there's always 100 people who are better, and try and find those people. Be humble, learn from them, and just stay curious. Don't make up your mind about anything, and stay open. Stay open to new stuff. I think that's the most important thing. I think as soon as unless you make the conscious choice, like I've seen and done what I want to do, I'm going to shut it down. I think it's worth always keeping an open mind, no matter what.
Great. And 20, how can our listeners keep tabs on you? How do we follow you?
Let's see. I'm on Twitter under my name. You can always email me. You can head over to museumor.com, museumor.com, and see a little bit about what we do. And if you want to get in touch, you can email me on there or tweet me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Robin. It's such a pleasure to have you on. In my eyes, you were kind of early on in VR, bringing that to the mainstream, at least in Vancouver. So, I think that's a really exciting point considering where we are with VR and all of its tangential technologies. So it's super great to have you here.
Oh, well, thanks for having me on, Thomas. It's been a while since we hung out, so it's nice to catch up and to see what you're doing. I look forward to hearing more of these episodes.
Awesome. Thanks so much.